Hi, and welcome to Metaphysical Chat. My name is Joy Koff, and my special guest today is Jayme O'Donnell. Hi, Jayme.
Hi, Joy. Hi, everybody.
So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about Jayme. Jayme has been teaching out of Miracles of Joy for, is it about 3 or 4 years, Jayme? I don't know how long it's been at this
I think
point.
it's longer than that. I think it's closer to 5 or 6.
So we want to talk a little bit about what Jayme does, because some people see this stuff and they don't understand what it is when we talk about psychic development and things of that nature. So let's go ahead and get started, Jayme. So I want you to kind of talk a little bit about, you call yourself a psychic medium, but you also call yourself a medium, correct?
Yes.
So let's talk a little bit about what is the difference between a psychic medium and a medium.
Okay. Well, first, I believe everybody's born with intuition. It's just something that we're all born with. And when you start to develop your intuition, or actually pay attention to it, and receive information in the way that your brain and your body does, you develop those senses into your psychic senses. And everyone can develop those. And then as you're developing that, I believe it's just a natural flow into communicating with spirit in the spirit world. Some people just jump right to the spirit world and communicate with them because the spirits are coming to them and wanting to communicate. It's a little bit easier if they know how their psychic senses work, so they can communicate easier and have it flow more when you connect with the spirit world.
So Jayme, you've been teaching psychic development and mediumship development at Miracles of Joy for a period of time. So you do have a class that is coming up that we're going to actually have a live class at Miracles of Joy this month.
Yes.
And it's on June 20th. It's psychic development and mediumship development. So if anyone is interested in attending, just let us know. So let's talk a little bit. What kind of expertise does someone need to join your psychic development class?
None.
Okay.
No expertise at all. That's the purpose of it. Each class, I pick a different tool, if you will, whether it's a pendulum, crystals, to reading tea leaves, working with drawing, painting. I use different tools each week. And it's a way for people to stop thinking about their psychic senses and just sense the information that they're getting. And everybody ends up being very surprised the first time they come, because most people feel that they get information and they don't know how it's coming or why they feel so overwhelmed. And we do talk about how to control turning on your psychic abilities and turning them off. You don't have to be afraid to go to the grocery store or the mall at Christmas. I admit I was too. It could be very, very overwhelming, especially when you're an empath. But in the class, we talk about that. People talk about their experiences, and we talk about how it is very possible. I mean, it's your mind and it's your body to control the information that's coming in.
And what is the difference between psychic development and mediumship?
When you develop psychically, and let's say you're giving somebody a psychic reading and you're reading them, you're reading their energy field or their aura, basically. Every living thing has an aura. And in that aura is the past, present, and potential future. So that is how we actually just read the information, as we tap into the energy of the other person and focus that energy and to receive the information. And we also talk about ethics in my classes. It makes for great TV, the Long Island medium going up to strangers on the street and giving them automatic readings or surprise readings. And we talk about how that's kind of an invasion of privacy and things like that. So as you develop your psychic senses, so you tap into other people's energy, but everyone also has a higher self, right? That is connected to the other side or the universe or God, whatever you want to call it. And all that information is there for us to be able to tap into also. That comes a little bit later after you start developing your your focus and your psychic abilities on the energy of the person in front of you. And then you're able to communicate with your higher self and it just kind of opens up naturally. And there's different exercises that I do to help people to open that up. Then there's also spirit guides and guardian angels. And for me, that's more psychic information. Yes, they're from the spirit world, but it's a different kind of communication than with mediumship. And I'll talk about that in a second. So when you're connecting with the sitter, that's who you're giving the reading for, you can actually, their guides will step forward and it will feel different for you. And you can tell the difference between just the person you're reading and their spirit team. Their energy is very different. But a lot of times the person's been talking to their spirit team or asking for help or guidance. And that's why the spirit team steps forward and they get their chance to actually speak. Does that make sense? Okay. And in mediumship, you actually raise your vibration and the spirit lowers theirs. You meet in the middle and you communicate directly with the spirit. What I do is called evidential mediumship. And that is when, and most of the people that you see, you know, John Holland, Jane von Prague, all of the big mediums, that's the kind of mediumship that they do also. And what that is you bring evidence from the spirit that only that spirit could know for the person who came for the reading. And it proves that that spirit is with me. And a lot of times it also proves that, you know, a lot of times when we have a loved one on the other side, we'll talk to them, we'll talk about them. We wonder if they hear our conversations. Well, they do. And they let you know during the reading, oh yeah, I know that birthday's coming up and it's going to be a big one. I know that you sent flowers to, you know, put flowers on my grave last week. I know that you do this and you do that. And it's an amazing emotional experience for the person getting the reading. It just validates that their loved one is really there and is aware of how much they love them. And it's a healing experience actually for the spirit as well as the person who comes for the reading. Does that help?
It does.
Okay.
It does explain the difference between the two. I do want to know a little bit more about you. I see that you're a 4th generation psychic. So okay. Who in your family was psychic? How is this handed down?
Well, first I didn't know about it until I came out of the spiritual closet, as they say. Because I had to tell my family what I was doing. I was raised Catholic. Talking to dead people was not even thought about or talked about. And I only told my sister that I was developing. And so I had to tell my family about my website because I didn't want them to find out some other way. And, you know, which is fair. And then I had cousins and aunts coming out of the work. I was reminded that my great-grandmother, well, I didn't know about my great-grandmother, but my grandmother had prophetic dreams and she knew things. I had a few of her sisters. So it's my great-grandmother who had those experiences first. Then my grandmother, her daughter, and a ton of her sisters. She had 11 children, I believe. And some of the men also were psychic. And then cousins and aunts in my generation turned out to be psychic too. And I think it's great. I think it's great. And like I said, I believe everybody's born with intuition. It's just a gift that we get to navigate this world that we're living in. And so we can tune into our own self and our own feelings and differentiate, you know, what's going on. Because I don't know about you, but when you have children, you kind of tune into them and know beforehand what they're feeling, or that they had a bad day at school, or they're having an issue with a friend at school, or something like that. And it's helpful in that way. Absolutely. Yes, it was very strange to find out that so many of my relatives were also psychic. Fun, actually, fun. And so everybody's really excited for me. And they're all in California. All my family's in California. So when I go out there, I haven't been out there actually since I've been doing this. So it'll be a fun family reunion.
So I do have some questions because it shows that you've worked in several states. I saw that you worked in California, New Jersey, Southeast Asia. What was
Yes.
Southeast Asia?
I lived in Singapore for 2 years.
Oh, okay, so that's interesting.
Yes, and I found a little store, metaphysical store. Um, mm, they don't exactly think of everything the same way we do. It was mainly Chinese population, and uh, they have some superstitions around death and what it's like on the other side. But having conversations with these people was amazing, you know. So it was just a really fun thing for me to continue while I was there. Um, I started, I guess, when I was a little kid. You know, I saw angels. I talked to angels. I just thought everybody did. You know, I had no idea. But I also knew that it wasn't talked about in the family, you know, because my sister had an invisible friend, and, you know, she was kind of, you know, they talked about the invisible friend and kind of made fun of it, but not really, you know what I mean? So I knew that I couldn't tell them I was talking to the angels. Um, and then, you know, most people too, I find this to be true with a lot of my students, is they turn it off when they go to school, because we start learning all how to use our left brain more instead of our more creative side, which I believe is where the information comes from psychically, is more of the right brain. And so the left brain, we're learning math and English and reading and all of that. And so, not that it sucks the creativity out of us, but it just focuses our brain in a different way for more time during the day. And there's just some things that children shouldn't be exposed to from adults. You know, think about your thoughts in a 5-minute period. They go up and down, up and down. You know, you're up and then you're down, and you think negative thoughts, you think positive thoughts, negative, positive. And a child doesn't understand that. It becomes very overwhelming. So I turned it off for a lot of reasons. And then it just comes back when you're ready. Does that answer the question?
Yes, it did. And I
Okay.
find that that's a true statement for a lot of folks who are
Yeah.
interested in mediumship or psychic development or yoga or all these metaphysical practices that exist out there. What I found is every person that I've sat down who's come into the store and I've talked to over the past, I guess now I'm going on 15 years, it's the same thing. It was like they knew they had these gifts when they were younger. They shut it off to fit into our society. And then all of a sudden, it's almost like their angels and guides are just like tapping them on the shoulder. It's time for you to reawaken and start developing gifts and kind of step out there at this particular time. I also want to talk a little bit about, you've been to the Arthur Findlay College, right?
Yes, many
So
times.
for those who don't know what Arthur Findlay is, how would you describe that to them?
Some people call it Hogwarts for adults because it's part of the spiritualist church. It's run by the spiritualist church. And I believe the spiritualist church, and actually spiritualism started in the US, but it didn't really last as long as it has over in the UK. Anyways, Arthur Findlay is a college in the UK, and it's for mediums. It's for mediums. And they also teach healing, channeling, trance mediumship, and physical mediumship. And it's a place, it's very, very intense. You go for a week and you work from 9 o'clock in the morning till 9 o'clock at night. You're just working on your mediumship, and you're with all these other people who are on the same journey you are, the same mediumship journey, you know, asking questions and talking about the experiences. And it's just amazing place to be. And I feel like the spiritualist church are the ones who formed a way for people to learn how to communicate with the spirit world. So I call it kind of more of a traditional type training. And it's a little bit different from what we have here in the United States. Training wise, because they really do call it training there. It's not just learning a skill. They believe you have to be trained to attain certain skills or hone your skills so that you can become a really good medium. And I've also taken classes here in the United States with James from Prague, John Holland, and Janet Nahovec, who actually, interestingly enough, used to be a Catholic nun. And she now has a spiritualist church where she teaches how to do mediumship and other things too. And she was just awesome, an amazing teacher. But in Arthur Findlay, you take the classes and you don't necessarily get a certificate. They don't believe in that. Unless you're part of the spiritualist church, they do have levels for you to be able to go into the churches, and they have several. And we actually get to go practice in the churches too in some of the classes, where you are certified to do readings in the church. It's part of the spiritualist service to have mediums come and do readings for the congregation. So you get practice that way. And there's also public speaking and speaking at the church services, and they have little certificates that you get through that. And so some of the people that you go to classes with are working on those certifications, but they don't have a certification for a medium. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. So how many classes, how many years have you been developing or taking these classes?
Almost 20 years ago.
Okay.
I know that kind of dates me a little bit, but yes, it was like 18 years ago, I saw a class advertised for psychic development, and I thought I'd just go and get a free reading. Okay, so I knew nothing about mediumship, and I was, the psychic stuff, for some reason, I've always felt drawn to it, even though it was only my mom who didn't have this ability and didn't believe in it and thought it was hooey. So, that's why it's so nice to have the rest of the family all into it. Anyways, so I thought I was going to get a free reading, and she ended up being a psychic and medium development teacher herself, who was trained at Arthur Findlay. And I took a class with her, and I was getting psychic information, and I was starting to understand why it was so difficult for me emotionally to go to the mall at Christmas, or how I can feel other people's feelings when they're 2 blocks away, or, I was just starting to understand how all the energy works. Because it's really all just about the energy, whether you're doing psychic or mediumship. And so 6 weeks were psychic, 2 weeks were mediumship. And I did that with her for 2 years, moved to Singapore for a few years. And I never did find a mentor there, but I did take classes. And then when I moved back to Texas, I found some teachers here in Texas. And I actually started, my husband, it's kind of a funny story, just bought me a table at a psychic fair, the Blue Moon Expo. Now you've heard of that one. So, and he said, "You're going." And I was just scared to death. So that's how I started. I just started doing that fair. And then I was invited to do Miracles of Joy, and I did the Dallas. And it's been a lot of fun since then. But my passion has become teaching other people about mediumship. That's really, I never thought I'd be doing it, but I love it. And I have a spirit team that helps me a lot with it.
I think what is really interesting is, when I talk to a bunch of people over the years about what brings them, this is like, I want to say it's our heart energy, if that makes any sense. It what connects us to our higher purpose, why we're here. It's also, I find it more about teaching people that they're not alone. That their guides are always there for any problem that comes up that can kind of help them resolve those problems in their everyday life. And what's interesting is everyone can develop their psychic abilities. There's not anyone who can't talk to their angels or can't connect to their spirit team to help them through those situations that come up in their everyday life. So your psychic development class is not necessarily just for beginners. It's also for those who just want to develop those skills a little bit further, correct?
Right. A lot of my students, some of my students, I think a lot of them actually do fairs now for psychic readings. And it helps you fine tune, the psychic development classes help you fine tune those skills. And then some people just want to come because they want to understand what's going on and how to handle it in their everyday life, because it can be overwhelming, especially if you're empathic. When you are so sensitive to other people's feelings, it feels like they're your own. And so they do come for different reasons. And even the mediumship. I feel like when you're on a spiritual journey, you're just drawn to certain classes, drawn to certain teachers, and it works for you. And you may not want to be a professional psychic or professional medium, but it's just part of gaining knowledge, because you're reading books, you're seeing stuff on TV, you're seeing stuff on the internet, and every little bit is so interesting. Even if it comes from other people's point of view, you know, you can take what you like and just leave the rest. But it is.
I just wanted to reiterate that on June 20th, you'll be hosting a psychic development class and a mediumship development class over at Miracles of Joy.
Yes.
I want to just talk a little bit. What I would really like to talk about is you have an intensive mediumship class that you teach as well, correct?
Yes, I do intermediate and advanced mediumship teaching workshops. You know, if you know how to connect with spirit, you can do the intermediate workshops, no problem. If you've gone to a few of my classes, you should be able to handle, or ask me if you can handle the intermediate ones. You know, it depends on your comfort level. But there are some that are developing very well as mediums. And the thing with developing your mediumship, it's a huge, even a psychic, it's a huge responsibility when people come to you for help. And if you don't know what you're doing as a medium, you can actually prolong their grieving process or hurt them mentally and emotionally. And if the medium doesn't know what they're doing or understand how to get the information and how to clarify the information for the person that they're reading for. Does that make sense?
Yes. It's more about coming from a higher purpose and why it is you're doing what it is that you're doing.
Right. You can have the best intentions in mind, but if, you know, and really have that need to help people in this way, but if you don't know, if you haven't had enough experience or enough training and enough focus on how to get the information just right so the person that you're reading understands it, then there's going to be a problem. You know, if you tell them you see something and you don't know why you're seeing it, that can be very confusing for the person that you're reading. And that's one thing that I do teach in mediumship too, is to have that laser focus. And when you're doing a reading, to be able to have that laser focus on the spirit only and the communication that you're getting from them. In fact, when I do readings for people, I don't even look at them, just kind of look off to the side. And I tell them that in advance, it's not personal. It's just, that's my blank canvas over there. And that's where I see and hear, and that's where the spirit is for me. But yeah, it's very important to have, if you want to go professional, to have that extra training. Some people like to do free readings online. That's good. It gives you a lot of practice, but it can be hard on the sitter and the medium, because sometimes you get challenged by the person you're reading, and they can be very negative in their response to you. And when you have experience, you know where they're coming from. You know if it's coming from fear or severe grief, or they still don't believe that it's possible. They just was hoping it would be. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of experience and a lot of time that you put into it before you become a professional.
So what you're talking about during that development process and about practice is when you're getting information clearly from your guidance or from spirit, you push through it no matter when you get these, I want to say, people who say, no.
Oh yeah.
And I think I understand what you're saying. In development, you learn how to get past that. It doesn't matter what the person is saying from a no perspective. You get this information in, and you teach people how to actually continue to share that information. From my years of working with mediums, I'm going to say over the past 15 years of those coming in and out of the store, what I notice when I sit in a lot of those spirit circles and that comes through, what ends up happening is the person doesn't want to receive it, but yet you continue to give it. I can't even count the number of times that when someone was so adamant that it was a no, 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 they would come back a week later and say, you know what? I went home and I thought about what it is that you said. And it's kind of like,
Yeah.
you were right on at that moment.
Right. Well, even the big mediums like Jaymes from Prague and John Holland, when they do a reading, they say, you know, have somebody, it's better if you have somebody come with you, because you could have amnesia. They'll mention a name and you're saying there, no, there's no person by that name. And then they'll get the big elbow from their friend and say, that's your name. Or that's so-and-so. Oh yeah. So, I mean, it does happen. And I do have people come to me, you know, with their, you know, you're not going to read me and I'm too hard to read. And, you know, I'm, you know, this and that. It's like, okay, all right, we'll see what happens. And sometimes those are the ones that when you turn them into a believer, it's absolutely amazing.
Mm-hmm. All the walls fall down at that moment.
What?
All the walls they've built up fall down at that moment.
Yes, yes. When they get that message that there's no way anybody, not even their spouse or their closest person, knows. And it just clicks and it's just amazing.
So let's talk, what I want to do now, Jayme, is talk a little bit. If anyone has any questions and they want to put them into chat, go ahead. I want to talk to those that are on Facebook Live right now because I am going through Zoom on a Facebook Live. If you have any questions, just tell us hi, let us know that you're there. But also, if you have any questions after we finish this one, Jayme and I will go out there and answer any questions. So if anyone has any questions that they would like to ask Jayme at this time, feel free to type in the chat room to go ahead and ask those questions. And I also want to talk about, Jayme, you actually teach, you also work our fair, correct?
Yes. Yep.
And are you doing the virtual fair that's coming up this week as well? I mean, this month as well in June?
No.
Okay.
No, I have so much going on right now in my personal life. Yeah, we're moving, trying to sell our house, you know, packing.
So you do work our psychic fairs as well when we start to have those in person again, correct?
Yes, I do.
So I want to talk to, if anyone has any questions about development, psychic development, mediumship, let's talk about some of the items that you teach in your psychic development class. Like, what are the tools that people will be able to use in that class?
Okay. I've used fresh flowers to do readings, ribbons, lifeline readings with a piece of string. I have just so many ideas. We do tea leaf reading, water, hydromancy it's called, candles, candle wax readings, and just different things that get you out of the left brain and into your more creative side. So you actually are looking at things in a different way and letting your senses give you the information instead of your logical brain, if that makes sense. So each one is different, and sometimes these things, or I also use oracle cards, usually angel cards, and I have them at the end of each class. People love them, you know, and they find they're more comfortable with those for whatever reason, but I don't let them read the little book, and I don't let them read big paragraphs on the cards themselves. I make them use their senses, because that's what they came to me to learn how to do. So not everything works for everybody, and the different tools I bring to class, and you know, we do psychometry with photos, with jewelry, with items. Even in our mediumship class, we'll do those kind of exercises too with psychometry, you know, holding something from a loved one and things like that. But they just help you come at the information from a different way. And so a lot of times when you have something in your hand, like let's say it's a photo or a piece of jewelry, your focus isn't on worrying about what other people are thinking about you. You're just feeling the energy of this jewelry, and you spit something out of your mouth, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I did it. You know, and everybody's just so excited. And it's amazing how much information you can get just by touching something of somebody else's. And it's all about, like I said before, it's all about the energy. And everybody has this aura around them. And that's what we're tapping into in the psychic development classes. And as you progress, usually we find that, and you probably know this too, Joy, that usually you have one sense that's a strength. You know, either it's feeling other people's emotions, being empathic, if you will, even feeling things within your own body that's somebody else's, that's not coming from you. That's really, I feel, the most common one. And then when I was little and I talked to the angels, I could see, I had visions, I could see things, and I don't think I was hearing them, but I might have been. Because I had to turn that one on later on. But as you develop one skill, you start getting more and more of the other clairs, as they're called. So every physical sense that we have has a psychic sense that goes with it. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. And also,
so,
you know, one of the items, we do have a comment that I'm going to go ahead and read to you that has come in over the chat. I also I want people to be able to find you as well. So why don't you tell them what your website is?
It's JaymePsychicMedium.com, but Jayme is spelled Jayme.
So the comment that I got is from Beth, and it says, I find it more comfortable, productive for me to not have any of the tools when I do readings. I have been practicing with tarot cards to have more for the person being read. Is it important when doing public readings to have several tools available, or is it okay to just read?
Well, that's the ultimate goal, to be honest. I mean, just reading their energy and reading. I started off using cards. Some people do use multiple tools. Eventually, what I would like to see my students do, instead of using tools, because we can rely on them too much. And if they stop working for you, then you panic and think that you're not connected anymore and that you're not able to get that information. For me, I'll be honest, Oracle cards don't work for me anymore. And I'm really bummed. I love those Oracle cards. They're beautiful pictures, you know, and the people who come for readings like to see those pictures, and they like to know that we're reading from the cards. But I just get the information now, and I say, I hope you don't mind. I'm not using cards today. And they say, you know, just go with it. And it's fine. I get all the information that the person needed for me to give them. And that's another thing too. When you're going to a psychic, you don't always get what you want to hear. You get what you need to hear. And sometimes that's tough. You know, they want a certain answer from me. And if I'm not getting it, I say, I can only give you what I get. And I'm just going to give it to you the way I get it, and, you know, be honest in that way.
I think for myself, I actually do use tarot cards to read, but I don't always read the tarot cards. Does that make sense?
Yes. Absolutely. It does to me. Yeah.
What happens is, it's like that. That's how I started in this, and that's what makes me really comfortable to have that kind of in front of me to guide me and lead me. But there's times when I'll turn around and say, oh, I don't need this, and I literally will put them onto the side and just share the information that I'm receiving for that person at that particular time. And that's, I'm going to say, a new thing for me this year. It's a new thing
for you. Yeah.
And I feel that we all have those tools that we use in order to connect, but we don't have to have those tools in order to connect. We can just be getting information at that point.
Right, right. Because I've known people who, people who work professionally have this problem too, is if a tool stops working for them, they panic, and they don't think they can get the information any other way. And that's not true, because we're always connected. That connection is never gone. And I believe that we can all develop our psychic senses, and that they're there to help us through this life and be able to know when someone's lying, or when not to go down that dark alley with no lights. I mean, besides common sense, right? But you just get that feeling, that tingling feeling, oh, somebody's watching me and I don't want to do this. And you know, those senses that we get, those aha moments or those gut feelings. Mm-hmm. And you can develop that to the point where, you know, it can help you find the proper vitamins. You know, some people bring a pendulum with them to the store, even ask if this is the vitamin B brand I should use. And, you know, there's tons of different ways. People use it to hire people if they're the boss. Mm-hmm. They use it to pick their nanny for their children, things like that. I think it's a huge aid in just getting through this life. And it also teaches you to listen to your own self. And I believe that when you know your own thoughts and your own feelings at any given moment, that it helps you discern whether it's you that's coming up, because it does feel like you're making it up. When you first start developing, you feel like, oh, it's just my imagination. It can't be, you know, psychic information. But that's what helps you know that you're not making it up, because it's not your thoughts. These feelings and these thoughts are coming somewhere else. And then you look around and you go, oh, it must be her, you know. And when that happens, like in a grocery store, I say a little prayer. I hope the best for them. And I don't read them. Mm-hmm. You know, I just, you know, send a little blessing.
So we have a comment from T that says, cards allow the sitter to have something to focus on, whether I'm using them or not. T, that's a very good point. I find sometimes, and I've seen this before, I'm going to say over the years, where people, for psychic mediums, they really don't want to sit in front of a psychic medium because they're not comfortable with someone not having any tools and being able to read them.
Right.
And sometimes they think the cards are giving people the information.
Right. Well, it does. T, you're right. It does give them something to focus on while you're getting into their personal stuff. So that's why I say, do you need me to use the cards, or can I just go, you know, when I'm reading for somebody? And they'll let me know if they need the cards. Mm-hmm. And so I'll put them out there and I'll start my reading. And after I finish the reading, then I'll look at the cards and see if they go with the reading sometimes. You know, because sometimes the information is coming so fast, I just want to get it out. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times at fairs, well, the Dallas Psychic Fair is only 15 minutes. So you have to get in their energy and out, and the next person in and out. And yeah, but you're right, T. It does give them something to look at and to focus on. And I feel like that sometimes, I mean, you know, tell me if you think this is wrong, but it gives them a feeling a little bit more of control, because they have something physical in front of them, and it's not a skill that they have necessarily. So it's kind of still weird for them to have somebody, you know, telling them about their life and telling them what's going on and what could happen, and they shouldn't do this and go do this. And it just gives them a little bit more, you know, there's something that they can touch. And I think that's very helpful for some people. Oh, thanks, T.
And we have another question from Beth that says, do you let them pull the cards, or do you pull them? Some readers do not let other people touch their cards. Well, you know what? That's a very interesting question, Beth. Mm-hmm. The truth of the matter is, I used to let them pick a pile of cards. Now, since COVID-19 has hit, I don't let anyone touch my cards.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, from where I sit is, no, I'll let them tell me which pile it is. I don't let them touch the cards. And it doesn't really matter if they have their energy on the cards or not. You're reading the energy around them at that time.
Right. And even when I have my students use cards at the end of the psychic development class, I will tell them they can do it any which way they want. They can fan them out, let the person pick. I personally don't have people touch my cards. just because I trust that the right cards will pop up as needed. And so I just shuffle them and say, okay, I'm done with that. And I just lay them out. And I just lay out 6. There's so many different ways, Beth, that you can do layouts. You know, there's a standard tarot layouts, but you can just do 3 cards. You can do past, present, potential, future. You can do past, present, message, or you can just do an overall reading. I mean, there's just so many different ways. And that's why it's fun to play with it. And that's really what the classes are about. It's just playing with it and getting the feel of the energy, and just letting it speak to you and communicate to you. It works.
So, Jayme, I want to thank you for joining me today. And again, I want to talk a little bit about your class. It's on June 20th, and it's a psychic development class from 2 to 4, and from 4 to 6 is your mediumship development class over at Miracles of Joy this month.
Yes.
Okay, and thank you so much for joining me. I want to thank everyone else who's out there as well who has joined us today. And I hope you like these metaphysical chats. These are something that I want to do on a regular basis. So we're going to turn around and probably do anywhere from 2 to 3 of these on a monthly basis with different people to bring different modalities to you. So thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Jayme.
Thank you, Joy. And thanks for everybody.
Bye.
Bye.